the same fallback of saying, oh, that's not going to work out because it's so obvious I'm going to a lane they've just defended against it. I should just farm up. Farming up on a Volibear is not equal to farming up on Hecarim, so I feel like Blank is happy to just react to plays. Volibear probably has to look in bot, but because it's so obvious he's going there, I don't know if he's going to find much.
CGA looking to get their bot lane snowballing for the millionth time this season. It feels
Crazy
like
how that works.
the Hawks a bit more happy to sit back and scale, but we are jumping into the game now for the Fukuoka SoftBank Hawks Gaming versus Crest Gaming Act.
Okay, and CJ looking to see if they can get something working on a level 1. Of course, you've got Halo Blades and a fair amount of single target damage if you have the lockdown for the Kai'Sa early into the game. But let's have a think a little later into this game, because if the Hawks do get online with the early game, they are going to be so hard to deal with the CJ. You have a Leona, you have some point-and-click CC from the Volibear and the Renekton, but I don't know if that's going to be enough against all of the mobility, heavy dive, and high damage coming out from the Hawks once they hit 2-3 items. So, again, CJ really want to make sure that either they're not picking the 5v5s very directly, maybe they can start flying in with something like the Volibear jumping over walls and Kai'Sa coming into the mid and late game, but you don't want to take an even 5v5 as far as I'm aware from CGA.
Yeah, now, in my opinion, you need at least 3 champions to lock down an Akali or lock down an Ahri in a fight. That's just how much mobility these champions have. So if you are taking those even number fights, maybe it doesn't go as well for you. Both junglers here starting opposite sides of the map on their blue buffs, leashless, and will be pathing away from each other in the early game.
So what we might see is Kassin maybe doing a reverse clear where you can go buff to buff and then kind of go around the other side of the map. Actually, he's just not doing that. Maybe we've got it all wrong. Maybe because it's so obvious that he's going bot side. Surely he couldn't go to another lane, which is hard to gank, right?
Maybe he could do. I think Kassin's decision-making has been a little bit interesting in recent weeks. We have talked about how CJ haven't really been able to get it going in the bot lane in the early game, which is where they have found a lot of their advantages previously. And with Kassin pathing away, not perhaps the most auspicious start. Blank gonna be spotted out by this control ward, but we'll just be able to clear it with the red trinket.
Yes, and you see that Blank has, of course, gone for the second point in Q. At level 3, doesn't need to go towards that charge, and it just allows him to just keep hoovering up all this farm. And as much as we can talk about Kassin having options, it feels so bad because you know that if you don't do anything, you are just passively falling behind a champion that is going to be bluntly more useful than you the longer the game goes on.
It's an unfortunate place to be in. It's Kanatu up in this top lane, not having too much fun up against Nap on this Renekton. We did say that Nap doesn't need to be the most lane dominant of players, but it feels like Renekton as a champion kind of just gives you that lane dominance for free, especially against an Akali.
Yeah, and yeah, even something like an Akali has to be worried about the burst threshold of something like a Renekton, particularly at these first couple levels, which is why you see Kanatsu just backing off from the wave and just saying, yo, I ain't fighting this guy. That can get a little bit awkward. But, you know, there's an interesting thing about the way that we've been kind of just talking about both these teams, because you can look at those scoreboards beneath those names and say, that's a 6 and 11 versus 8 and 9 team. Surely one of these teams is on better form than the other. Surely because they have better results. This is how this matchup's going to go. But that, frankly, just isn't the case. The Hawks had such a bad start to the early season, but they have managed to turn things around. And now suddenly, I mean, as you can tell in the way that we're talking about them, we very much consider them probably the overdog compared to the underdog of the CGA in this matchup. It's like, how do I... Favorites, that's the
I don't know. What's overdog? Not much, I don't know. Something like that. But no, Hawks are 5-4 in their last 9 games, ever since they lost to CGA in day 8. And 5-4, that's saying mid-table to me, which is exactly where CGA is at. So maybe the power level of these teams isn't quite as far apart as those standings may suggest.
But, I mean, as we get close to the playoffs, because both these teams are likely going to be in there at this point, then you start asking questions like, how well are they going to do in playoffs? How much do they need to start building on their stylistic flaws and their successes within this split so far? And I look at the Hawks and I think that there is a potential to reach a higher ceiling. I mean, particularly with the champion pools, which they've shown as well, which are a lot larger than many of their counterparts in the playoffs. I think in a best of 5, they're looking fairly happy with things. But CGA on the other side, again, they're really struggling to stabilize, and I don't know if that bodes well for anything in playoffs.
It's also about that flexibility, right? CJ very much all about hybrid, whereas the Hawks, I feel like Kinatsu, Dasher, and Marble can all be carries, which means that once you start getting into those best of series and you start having target bans and the whole pick and ban phase of League of Legends becomes a little bit more intricate. You've got more tools to play with. Kassin thinking about going for a gank in the mid lane. Dasher has flash but no level 6, so is a little bit vulnerable just for now, but playing very, very respectfully.
Is going to get 6 on this wave, which is why Dasher was looking for a bit more of a push, potentially looking to unlock that, but Dasher having to back away from a lot of these minions, might just be able to tag the... oh, he's not got the Q up, actually. It doesn't get the level 6 from either, but the chain misses. Is this going to be enough?
Yeah, the Mimic one was used, which forces Dasher away. But that was a heavy time investment from Kassin in the mid lane, and it gave the opportunity for Blank to pick up this first Drake of the game.
It does. I mean, you do sit there as Dash and you think, okay, well, level 6 not quite hit early enough. However, with a good trade there, suddenly, this is the great thing about this lane. One good trade from either side makes things very interesting for the next phase of play. As one chain lands, you're like, heck, that's a flash away. One charm lands, that's half the HP away from Kaito. On a similar kind of note, although they have some biscuits to even that back up and make sure that it doesn't get too bad with itself, but... Either way, now level 6 is hit for both these mid laners. Playmaking options starting to get unlocked for the side of Hawks.
Yeah, I feel like roaming is just going to be the name of the game. If you can get that shove, if you can get out of that lane. LeBlanc and Ari, both champions that really excel at getting around the map and making plays happen. And one place that I kind of want to see plays happen is this bot lane. Nautilus and Leona are both champions that have got amazing setup. And there's bursts that can come up from Akaisa Samira too. But so far, these 2v2s haven't been opting in.
No, and this is kind of a little bit what we've come to expect from CJ. Again, kind of as a stylistic thing. Over the years, you can change the players, and apparently they just play the same damn way. They're going to wait for team fights. They so often have. It's like, you know, first 10 to 15 minutes, it's fine. We'll deal with it. It's kind of an LJL specialty in general. We have quite structured early games. Some would say inflexible, some would say that it's not something that we adapt to very well over here, but we don't do much before 10 minutes unless you are Hatch Mecha or Steel and you really want to get the ball rolling early. Both these teams happy to kind of ride out the first phase of the game and see you at a Dragon 3.
Yeah, but I mean, I feel like that's really not what CJ want to be doing. I just have to look at Blank.
Absolutely not. It goes completely against the composition.
Yeah, Blank is already a couple of camps up in the jungle, not to mention did grab that Drake earlier. I don't know what's up with the overlay. I'm pretty damn sure that the Hecarim got that one, unless there was a crazy steal with a Void Seeker or something.
That's a very good point.
I'm second-guessing myself now, Nymera.
I remember seeing a Hecarim down there.
He was definitely doing the dragon.
Did we just... Okay, so am I having a fever dream?
I don't know.
It's just... Wake up. It's 2016 and the Rocks Tigers are about to face SK Telecom in the World Semi-Finals.
Oh no, as Reiner's about to face Nemo, gets knocked up with that passive, and... Well, CJ have started up this Herald. The Hawks are definitely thinking about engaging for it. Has already been secured, but can they take the fight after? Blank is going to engage, but he gets turned on, and Kassin will grab first blood. Can Kinatsu get anything? The perfect execution will trade one kill back, but the health bar is currently favoring the Hawks. CGA will just back away with that Herald.
And this is something which Renekton gives, which so few champions can give on the other side.
How did that hit
okay.
to Nema? Forced to flash away there. Not sure what happened in the bot lane, but his summoners are plenty burned.
That was a bit of a jammy hook coming in from the Nautilus. For Marble has to blow the cleanse, lose a lot of HP, doesn't have any pots on the same side. And CGA, they have the HP advantage on the 80 carries, but that doesn't help when the Hecarim's here.
Depth charge already used. Flash into the hook. No hope for Hybrid as Nemra is trying to cause a bit of a ruckus on the Marble. One more auto won't quite take down the Samira, as it's a double kill for Marble.
Finishes off with style, pops the ult just to clear through the minions, and Marble lives by the slimmest of margins. And this player, again, one we've had so many questions about after such a rocky start to the split, gets a lot of gold to start really hitting harder in the next fights. He wasn't present at this Herald fight, though, and this is something that Renekton does kind of uniquely compared to a lot of champions right now in terms of top laners. You really don't get to fight Herald against Renekton. He pops the ultimate, gets so much rage, and those empowered abilities make it so hard to fight face up against this champion, and the Hawks are lucky to not lose harder, honestly.
Yeah, but they were able to get that play on the bot side. So despite CJ securing that Herald, for the time being, gold is in the Hawks' favor by around about 1,000. But of course, once Shelly gets dropped back down onto the Rift, that's going to get evened up a little bit. And I think they're going to be fairly happy with how the early game has gone, as that is a big chunk onto Kaito already from Dasher.
I think they have to be very happy, and you sit there looking at your Samira, who's now at 2 kills, going towards it. That's a really good Q tag, actually. Now suddenly Kaito's not going to be able to do much for a little while, though it has the teleport to reset if he wants. But either way, going back towards the AD carry point, you're going towards the shield blow, right? And often you know that the AD carry is going to be the source of concern for the enemy team. If you've got a very survivable AD carry that goes towards something like a shield blow, rarely do we see AD carries go for that nowadays after so many nerfs. It makes your job so much harder when, again, you feel like there's a timer on your composition.
And I mean, that Shoppo is going to be useful at preventing some of the bursts coming out from CG. I think that obviously the Kai'Sa with that Acathian Rain, once you start getting towards 3 items, and it is going to be a crit build from Hybrid, so it will be a lot more focused on that. Blank looking for an engage in the bot side as well, as Nemra is trying to peel for his AD carry, but he's not quite able to do it in time. Forces Kai'Sa to flash away, and that leaves Nemra out to dry. Blank secures the 4th kill of the game for the Fukuoka SoftBank Hawks. And Drake is going to be a likely prize as well.
They're going to go towards a 2nd dragon, which has
it's
been
swapped
changed
over
on the scoreboard. What do you mean? It's like deja vu. Are we the LJL is actually the Matrix. Don't worry. Do not trust what your eyes see.
What's the Matrix?
Either way, that's going to be 2nd dragon down. It's going to be the Infernal Rift. That's, of course, a really big point of concern because it's not just a soul that you can really ignore. That forced to pop the Dominus as there was an Ignite and a perfect execution available from Kanatsu. And as much as Nap was a key player in that Herald fight, now you've got a lot to worry about in this matchup and the way that this game is going to play out.
You do have a lot to worry about indeed, as CJ are slowly falling behind, and they've not been a team that's been able to get those massive comebacks that we've seen from them in the past. It has been much more a case of lose lane, lose game. And with a composition that is so early game focused as this, that's not a position that you want to be in. And even with this Herald summon, it's only going to take those first 2 plates off this mid lane tower, which hasn't really been damaged aside.
There is an ult from Kai'Sa, potential to cancel the tower with the Volibear 2, but it's actually just going to be that. That will be all it is. Just, okay, because Kanatsu's really feeling it.
Yeah, wasn't quite able to land the Shuriken flip onto Nap, so will just be perfect executioning himself away. But I mean, he's having a fine time in this lane. There were a couple of rough trades in the early game, but Kanatsu really showing why he was such an impressive player in 2021, why he was picked up onto this Hawks lineup, and Nap is gonna struggle, I feel like, from this moment on.
Yeah, and we talked a little bit about the history of Nap earlier on, about how he's always been on CJ. He's been the standard bearer for this team, but Kanatsu was a former Overwatch player. He was the rookie of the split last year, and it wasn't even close, honestly, looking at the other new players coming into the league. And you now look at this player who's coming back online, struggled after a first half of the split, and it's good to see him back in form, because it felt like he was kind of the successor to what Ebby has set up in terms of top lane dominance in the LJL. Of course, Ebby's still around and very much king of the hill so far, but Kanatsu always keeps himself somewhere in the conversation behind him.
Yeah. And I like that it's on these sort of carry-oriented champions, stuff like the Akali. He's played a lot of Gwen, he's played a lot of Graves, champions that he can actually have agency and be that sort of like 2nd and 3rd carry for the Hawks. 14 minutes into the game, so those plates have fallen off. I'm sure we're going to get a graphic soon enough with the numbers on them. And again, I don't think it's going to be a very happy reading for CGA fans.
And yeah, that has kind of been the case for most of the 3rd round robin and a bit of the 2nd round robin for CJ. Of course, coming in with that 5-loss streak, as you highlighted at the very start of the day. CJ looking to condense their numbers on one part of the map. There is a 2nd Herald available. The good thing about slamming that Herald into the mid lane turret and the first time of asking was now that it's on a low enough HP that you get a 2nd Herald, that could be a free mid lane outer turret, and that helps you organize your map a lot more safely. The Hawks are here in numbers themselves, though, potentially looking to angle for a fight.
It's close. Kaito popping over the wall and dropping a lot of damage onto Marble. I mean that CJ are a bit more favored around this Herald, but Hawks are going to go for the fight regardless. Reiner landing that hook as Blank is diving into the backline onto Hybrid, who is going to get assassinated, but not before 2 members of the Hawks fall down. Nemba will be the first casualty of the fight as Kanatsu is going to be chased down as well. That's 3 kills for CJ, and they get the Herald as well. That is exactly the fight that you needed.
And that's very overbold from the Hawks. Again, talking about when these compositions come online, you don't necessarily have the items, the 2-item spikes, which you're very much looking for with your Akali and everyone else involved in that equation. And serious credit to Kaito, a player which we've had a lot of negative things to say about in this season 2. Gets a huge chunk onto Marble before things start off. Kasim might have overstayed in his own right, though, has a flash. He's going to get punted back.
It does have a tendency to overstep at points, but we'll go back in for the trade. Dasher very far forward here, but we'll find the charm. The hook flashed away from by Kassin. Crucial engage tool down, but at least your volley bear isn't dead.
Yeah, that I normally find that's a positive, you know. So coming back to this, Herald fight, see that Kaito just blindly hops over the wall and says, "Okay, cool, I'm going for this fight." And Kaito has been a player who's hopped over blind walls before looking for miracle chunks and been completely slaughtered for it. This time, though, hugely impactful, because look how many autos Marble gets off in this fight. Currently, it sits at none. Tries to dash in just a little bit afterwards, but, I mean, this is CGA team fighting. We talk about Nap as not being a strong early game lane specialist, but he will find his man in the team fights, and this time it is Marble. And with Marble down, you're lacking a lot of early game damage from the side of Hawks, and CGA run off with an important victory.
But CJ might be lacking some dragons as Hawks once again rotating over to this Infernal. And as they pick this up, that means that Infernal Soul is a possibility for them just before the 22-minute mark. So CJ, yeah, they've shown some good stuff, but they're going to have to use this gold lead effectively to prevent that objective going down in a few minutes' time.
And, you know, with the Heralds slamming through 2 mid lane turrets, to the favor of Crest Gaming Act, they can start really rolling across other structures on the map and at least claiming some territory to fight the next dragon, which they just didn't have before. They take down a top lane out of turret, 2 towers down in that mid lane. Means that CJ gets to really approach the bot lane now with a lot of prime positioning, because there isn't a great ability for the Hawks to kind of push up in mid, control vision, and then kind of go through their own jungle, because that's going to be quite a dangerous thing to do now against CJ. I'm interested to see how Crest Gaming Act will handle their vision to then secure themselves more map plays before this next dragon starts to force their hand.
Because, I mean, they've got a lot of pick potential. Like, I mean, if Hawks are walking into unwarded areas of the jungle and Nema or Kaito, or even, honestly, Hybrid at this stage is there, that's going to be health bars dropping very, very rapidly. It's not a particularly tanky composition from the Hawks. Yeah, Blank's got that chem tank. Yeah, Liner is running the aftershock, but you don't have something like an Ornn, like a Sion, something that can just stand in the way of the enemy. Double chains used from Kaito there with a big chunk
Speaking of
onto
not
Blank.
being tanky. Well, I mean, you look at what the Hawks have to do now, and they want to realistically be grouping up. They want to be fighting more grouped engagements, but CGA have quite a lot of mobility in their own regard. They do have themselves some important leads on important characters, and you can see that Nap with Consent going to chunk down this bot lane out of turret, and CGA, after not really hitting the mark early on into the game, have found their stride in the 15 to 20 minute mark, which is again quite characteristic of this team. But I am now interested in seeing what the Hawks can do to stop themselves being picked apart at the seams by LeBlanc jumping over walls, by Kai'Sa flying into the fight, because it feels like they're running out of safer options themselves.
And the thing for me is going to be not necessarily how sort of Kanatsu and Dasher deal with Kaito and Hybrid. Like, carry versus carry, assassination versus assassination, I'm okay with that. I'm worried about how they're going to deal with Kassin, how they're going to deal with Nap. These are both very, very bruiser-oriented champions that have a lot of sustain, and aren't champions that you can really take down in 1 or 2 spell rotations. And given how strong they are, I feel like they're going to pose a major issue for these assassins on the Hawks.
That's a very good point. You know, I mean, you do plateau at some point with those bruisery champions, particularly someone like an Akali makes their life very, very difficult. But something to track coming into the next couple of fights.
As a hybrid is going to have to watch your
okay.
hit. Flash charmed. Taken out in an instant. Third kill of the game for Marvelous. Nap doesn't want to be here. Uses the Dominus. Heals up with the Cold. The Maker will be able to flash away, but not before they get taken out by Dyna.
Absolute
2 quick kills in the mid for Hawks.
Absolute heartbreak, because this is the kind of moment where you're meant to be sat there thinking, look, we have the lead, we have the ability to make the aggressive plays, and it's Dasher who finds the pivotal moment to change this game. And Dasher last season was such an important part of this Hawks roster that was sadly very unsuccessful between both of those splits, but looking to shine a brighter light on this roster, and we've got to go see how this one works out. And does this start over a ward? It starts over a damn ward. It starts with it, and Hybrid has no cleanse, has an exhaust, but you don't expect the Hawks to be coming in immediately after them. The Hawks move in numbers, and they find a target at a crucial moment.
And the Nap TPing in, can't cancel that, end up going down for free, and that's kind of what Dasher just does. That's why I've actually been liking him on this Ahri a lot of the times, because it gives him that potential to go and find a pick. It lets him be the catalyst.
His own stunts.
yeah, do your own stunts.
Yeah, it's kind of comes into a wider conversation about players and champions, which I call them stuntmen and stunt doubles, or stunt persons. So stuntmen, they don't need a stunt double. They do everything for themselves. That is stuff like your LeBlancs, your Carlys, your Aries, and then you've got your stunt doubles, which sometimes need a bit of help. You can see something like you can see something like a Victor maybe falling a bit more into that with certain players. I mean, you'd love to have a stunt double instead of a Leona right here, because Nemo is not happy.
Goes Golden to buy some time, though, as Kaito also gets a fair chunk onto Marble. Hybrid actually jumping into the backline, but gets feared. Nap is going to be there to protect him, though, as on the backside, Kinazu is causing chaos. The Kaiser is taken out, and CGA are getting wiped. It's a clean ace, nearly, for the Hawks, as Kaito is the only one left alive. And look at that, it's Dragon time.
Oh, lesser stunt doubles, more of just mannequins left on the shop floor. Absolutely scythed through by the Hawks, and you've now seen what happens when you go for these group fights after your timer has fallen off. It's an infernal soul for the Hawks. It is a game-breaking advantage, and Marble escapes once again by the slimmest of HP margins. How does this start? It starts with vision control, it starts with another charm, and Dasher starting off things. Well, it's a great turnaround initially onto Marble. Clean cleanse, though, and not quite enough damage. That ultimate from Hecarim stopping the second and third auto attacks coming through from that Kaiser might very well have changed the course of this fight, because if you do get that first kill and Kaiser gets to fall back, Hawks would have been in some worries, but they clean up house.
I mean, Hybrid wasn't able to get that Cathian Rain onto a squishy target. You saw it being used onto Blank, and I have to feel that if all of those bullets had been going into Marble's health bar instead, then yeah, maybe the Samira goes down and maybe that fight plays out a hell of a lot better for CGA, but that's not the place they find themselves in as it stands. Infernal Soul on the Hawks, who haven't even taken down this mid lane tower, but with the power that their champions have, they can already start to pressure vision around this Baron, and they can take down some of these structures as well.
And this is now a huge turning point in the game. It's the watershed moment where the Hawks were not winning in structures. We saw that CJ used that second Herald to huge effect to get a huge hole in the defensive torn through for the side of the Hawks, and then taking down the towers after the Hawks have to kind of like patch up that one missing link in their defenses. But now the Hawks get to take all of those towers back, get to even up all of that standing gold left in those structures, and they're continuing to group as a 4-1. They're not allowing CJ to play around a more split map, and the Hawks, as soon as they start taking those structures when they're kind of given up to them, CGA are going to find it very hard to stabilize.
And the thing is, CGA, just looking at the gold, aren't massively behind. So if you're like pretty new to League of Legends and you've been told that gold is very important, you're probably thinking, well, it still looks playable for CGA. But the Infernal Soul is so big for Hawks, and their composition probably going to be stronger as we get later and later into the game.
That's the secret to why I'm gold in solo queue. Gold's important. I discovered that. It took me a while. Turns out the secret to hitting gold in League of Legends is something that you tweeted out. You hit diamond first, and then you be a caster. Then you don't have time to play the game, and then you're stuck in gold after that point.
Oh no, you just become like a Cassandra-like figure. Like you're playing solo queue, and you're like, right, this is what we should do. We should send this person to this wave, and they back off at this time. Then we can get vision set up around the Drake, and then we can secure it clean. Oh no, my bot lane has just walked into their jungle for no reason and died.
Oh man, I wish I didn't relate to that so much, but such is life. Such is life. It's like I'm playing against a Katarina, and I'm sat there like, oh, I'm gonna ping that Katarina's missing in lane. They're probably going bot. Oh, my bot lane's died. I hate this game.
It's 5 minutes into the game. Katarina has rode bot and killed my bot lane.
CJ, I'm starting to like this game less and less. Blank, just charging up the audacious, not the audacious charge, that's a Shinzo. The other thing, devastating charge.
I mean, it was quite audacious rather than devastating.
It was, but it wasn't too over-aggressive, and it allows the Hawks to take down that mid lane outer turret, which is, again, such an important thing for them. Now the Hawks get to walk towards this top side and set up towards Baron for the next objective of the game.
And I think that improved communication that we alluded to on the desk is kind of what we're seeing here. I feel like a few weeks ago, Blank would have gone, yeah, charging in. In goes Liner charging in onto Marvel. And Hybrid is taken out with ease. Never's going to be the next one on the table. Marble started off this game with a double kill, and he has secured another one 26 minutes in, and that could be the death nail in CGA's coffin as the Hawks rotate towards Baron.
And Hybrid has been such an important player this split for CGA, and we were talking about how he'd impressed us so much as one of the newbies coming into the block. He sat as 0-4, sat at such an awful scoreline for this game, and that was a very egregious mistake in that mid lane. Didn't need to be that far up, gets caught out, and his team is punished wholeheartedly for it. It's a miracle Baron steal or nothing now for CGA.
Kassin is in the area, 3k HP on the big purple worm, but the Hawks don't want to take any chances. They're going in. Kassin diving forward with the Stormbringer, but he's going to get taken out before he has a chance. Clinical stuff from SHG.
It's clinical, and well, time of death, it's about 27:03 for CJ as the Baron goes down, and there's so many team members for it, and this is kind of
You're just not allowed to do that.
You're not allowed to do that. I like to see the game from players' perspectives before I start criticizing them, but all I can see there is this blinkers over the eyes and thinking, I must push mid-wave, I have to do this, but you can't do that unsafely. You have to do that with a certain level of respect, and Hybrid has not had that.
It's happened again! Nymera! Twice in 2 minutes, Hybrid gets taken out in the mid lane, hanged onto his summoners there, but Elder Drake is up!
For the 5th time this game, CJ have lost their marbles. They've gone insane. They've lost themselves a pivotal member before an objective comes up, and CJ left, ruining the opportunity to have an even 5v5 where they could at least try and get onto the backline. And their AD carry has just been caught out at such an important moment.
It's honestly not acceptable to a certain level. CGA were playing so well in the middle of the split. They went like something like 8 wins in 9 games, and this is not the Crest Gaming act that I'm looking forward to seeing in playoffs. But credit to the Hawks, they have been decisive, they have been aggressive, and they've got themselves an Elder Drake 28 minutes into the game.
And I think the thing which has been most impressive to me about just watching the minimap while the Hawks are playing, and every time you see that an aggressive play is even being set up for, everyone's in the right place at the right time. The Hawks are moving in concert, and it's a beautiful sight for the eyes of Hawks fans, which have, again, much like CJ, not had the greatest of results in the LJL as a whole. This has so often been DFM's region, with a couple of look-ins from V3 and Rascal Jesters as they've looked towards the top of the tree, and both of these teams have wished for more from their rosters. They're now both fighting for, of course, better playoff seeding, for playoff spots in general, I suppose, if in the case of Axes picking up a miracle streak and the Hawks dropping out. But both of these teams now looking to find this recent form and secure themselves more confidence into postseason.
I mean, the Hawks are talking about in their interviews winning the entire thing, so confidence running high as TP coming into the base from Kinatsu. They don't even care about that mid-wave, apparently. They're just focused on taking down these Nexus towers. As the wave comes in, they're going to shift their focus and grab their second inhib tower, and most likely the second inhib of the game.
I mean, they have themselves Infernal Soul. They have themselves the Elder Dragon buff too. I mean, Can't blame Hawks from being brazen about the way that they're approaching this, and they're going to stay with the wave. They ask CJ to square up once more.
Yeah, looking for a hook as Kasin is taken out immediately, and the hopes for CGA have been dashed by Dasher as he dives forward. Marble once again securing the kills, and there's just nothing that CGA can really do at this point. Kaito trying to deal some damage back onto Dasher with that distortion, but he's going to get taken fairly low himself fairly soon. Next is going to be the final focus. You don't need any more kills, you just need to pick up this win. And the Hawks secure themselves at 7-11.